Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be creating some beautiful altered index cards that are perfect for adding to your junk journals, happy mail, or mixed media projects. The best part of these is we're just simply going to be using some scraps, our index cards, and some glue. There's not a whole lot else to it, so this is going to be a really easy project we can do. And the best part, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Each card becomes a unique little piece of art. And one unique thing about this is on the back, it's got all the journaling spots. So you have lines to write on for these journal cards. So that makes it kind of fun. And they end up kind of looking quilt-like. So let's get started with these. We're going to start out with using just simple index cards. Let me try to get the glare off. There we go. These are 4" by 6", and I want all my cards to be 3 by 4. So this is the perfect size. And all we have to do to make it 3 by 4 is just cut it in half because they're already 6 inches crossed. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to use one, and out of each one I can get 2 cards. So we'll line it up at the 3, and we've got one ready to go. Okay, so when I'm doing these, I'm going to keep in mind what my top part's going to be and the bottom part. Simply when I'm gluing this on how I want it, because I want this red line to be at the top. You don't have to do that, of course, it can be either way, but I kind of like the red line at the top. So as I'm putting this together, I'm going to make sure I have this flipped so that red line's going to be right at the top. So when I'm doing this, to start out, I'm going to bring over some paper to glue on. I'm just going to pick some patterns. And if you notice on these, I've kind of got some are bigger, some are smaller. It really doesn't matter at all how you want to line them up on there. But I'm just simply taking little scraps and gluing them on. So let's just go ahead and start. I think that one will be a good one. Right in the corner. So I'm just using just a glue stick to do this part. And I'm just going to put it on there. Just kind of line it up as straight as I can. And then I'll flip it over here in a minute and cut all that little extra part off. Alright, so let's grab another piece. That one would look pretty good there. I love how this ends up looking like a little quilt card. I don't really enjoy making real quilts in life, but I love making pretend quilts on paper. So what I like to do now, once I've got a couple pieces glued on there, is go ahead and trim it up. Just because it gives me more of a visual of what it's going to end up looking like at the end. Flip that out of the way. Trim that. Alright. So I'm liking that so far. Now on most of these, I kind of did a taller one here and then I did 2 to match. Like I said, you can do it any old way you want. That one's got a bigger piece and little piece, but on a lot of these I kind of made this second piece, I found, as the further I went along, match up there. So let's see if any of these, well, that one probably will be pretty good there, I think. I'm going to grab my pencil. I want this to kind of end up right in there, so I'm just going to give it a little trim. You can pull your trimmer back over. I'm just going to eyeball it. It'll be close enough, I think. Let me erase my pencil mark. Sticking to my finger. There we go. That'll work pretty good. All right, for my next piece, I kind of want some color up in here. This way or this way. like that, okay? And then I'll put one more piece there and one more there. I'm not getting too picky about this. This is what makes each piece just a little bit unique. Well, here we go. Here, I think that'll look good. Sometimes you just got to put them next to each other to see where you want them. All right. Trim off these extras. I think that would look pretty good. Alright. Good. Now, if you wanted to make this more vintage looking, at this point you could go ahead and ink around the edges, maybe with some distress ink. Also, if you wanted to make it more vintage looking, you could use book pages in here or some of the other scrapbook paper, if that's more vintagey looking, of course. But I've kind of got these in a lot of pastels and let's flip them real quick. Pastels and flowers, florals, and polka dots. So I'm kind of just staying with that theme as I'm working on this. So I'm not doing any kind of shading on any of these today. However, I am getting ready to make these lines on here. So in order to do that, I need to pull out my sewing machine. Just kidding. I'm not pulling out my sewing machine. This is going to be my sewing machine today. I'm just not crazy. If you've watched any of my other videos, I'm not crazy about pulling it out because I have to get it all set up, and I don't have a whole lot of room in my studio to do that right now, space left for it. So it's put away and it's a hassle, and I'm always pleased enough with how this looks with my paper for now. Of course, it's going to make it even prettier. If you use your sewing machines, it's going to give it a lot more texture. But I am just happy enough to have this be my sewing machine today. So on all of these, I started out by putting a little heart in the corner. You don't have to do this, of course, but it's what I chose. Sometimes I'll put like a little circle, and sometimes I'll put nothing. So I'm just going to start my stitch lines. You can make them as long or as short as you want. You can grab a ruler out and make them perfect. I'm not about perfection, so I am just going to do this by hand. Okay, these other two sides. And we're almost there. We'll come right across the top. And then next I want to do a zigzag stitch so I can, sew all these together. So I'm just going to start, let's start right here in this part. And I kind of usually just grab one of them off the side and go back and forth. Now, if you use the same size, same thickness of paper, this one's a little thicker than the others, or if you use cardstock instead of all paper, if they're all the same height, this is easier. But since one's a little thicker than the other, I'm having to go back and forth. But like for this one, this is pretty much the same height all the way through here. So then I can just go back and forth. And I don't mind if it looks a little wonky, zigzaggy, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking for perfection on this. And I kind of like the look of wonky sometimes when I'm doing the junk journals. All right, we'll sew these together, and you can make these as tall or as short as you want. You can set your stitches to whatever size you'd like. All right, and I think that does that. So the one nice thing, like I said about this now, is you've got this side, but you've, you know, as the decorative side, and you can embellish this up more however you'd like. But on this side, then you've actually got a journaling spot, which a lot of times I do my journal cards just plain, you know, on plain cardstock, and then it's white on the back to write on. But I really liked doing it with these because then they have the lines. Okay, next I want to see, you can see on all of these I have some journal tabs at the top. So let's make a journal tab to go in here. Get this other scraps out of the way real quick. Tidy this up a little bit. Okay, in order to make my journal tab in the top, I've just got this little punch that I've been making them with. And let's use this, I've got this scrap piece of pink. So let me show you how this journal, or how this, let me show you how this tab works. Let's cut this off. In order to do this one, it has to be folded. So I'm going to fold it so it has a nice edging. Open this guy up. And then I always take the back plastic parts off of all of my punches so I can see through there well. And as long as I've got this end, the folded end here, then it's going to cut it right. And that's how that's done. So this is a really handy little tool to have. Now if you don't have one of these, you can still make this same size. Let me show you real quick how this can be done. I've got just a little piece of scrap here. This is 1.5 inch by 1 1/4 inch. So I'm going to fold it on the 1.5 inch side. And that's going to be the tabby part side that I try to get it even. Come on. Don't fold on me crooked. There we go. Then I'm just going to crease it so I've got a nice edge on it. And then you'll notice on this one it goes, it's got a little indentation like an L or a backwards L. So I'm just going to come with my scissors. If you don't want it like a L shape in it to be this particular size, you can always use your paper, your corner rounder, and it would give you then the round edges. But I just want to show you how you could do these in particular. And all I do is come with the scissors and make a little snip on both sides. Quite there we go. And then do the same thing here. And you can, if you don't want to eyeball it, you could do more precise measurements. But I am an eyeball kind of girl sometimes, which sometimes you gotta go in and make adjustments, but that's okay. Get out of there. All right, and get that off of there. And then I just come with my scissors then, and then just make a little bit round. And that is it. So that's not too far off from being the same as that, if you don't have that and you want the same kind. But anyhow, let me stick that to the side. And in order to put this on, I'm going to just use some tacky glue. And before I glue this on, let me show you. If you'll notice, I've gone back and forth with these, so it won't all just be straight down the middle. I've done some in the middle, some to the left, and some to the right. So then when they're all done, they kind of go back and forth. I happen to use just all plain colors on these, but you can also use any of your colored or your decorative cardstock or paper that you have. Or you can even do lace and staple some lace onto the top of these. That would be pretty too. Just going to stick this guy right in the middle. Try to line those parts up so that this top group goes right with the top. Clean up my glue spot a little bit. And that is that. Here we go. So that's how quick and simple these come together. I'll pull some of these out so you can see them. And then using some, different patterns. That one's pretty with the roses down in the corner. And then this one in particular has the shiny flowers on it. So it's a great way to use up the scraps and then have a nice journaling spot and be able to start with the index cards is another plus. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you next time.